All right, let's get real for a second. The middle class, the heart and soul of America, is under attack. And I'm not talking about some slow decline, I'm talking about a full-blown crisis happening right in front of us. While the rich get richer and politicians cozy up to their donors, hard-working families are being left behind. If you're juggling multiple jobs, struggling to pay rent, or wondering if you'll ever afford a home or start a family, this is for you. The truth is, the system is stacked against everyday Americans. It's not broken, it's rigged. And today we're diving into 20 things that used to define middle-class life. Things our parents and grandparents never thought twice about, but are now out of reach for millions. By the end of this, you'll see just how urgent it is to fight for change. Let's break it down. 1. The vanishing dream of home ownership. Owning a home was once the cornerstone of the American dream, a symbol of stability and success for the middle class. It was simple: work hard, save up, buy a house, and build a life. But that dream has become a distant memory for millions of Americans. The reality today is starkly different, and the numbers tell a grim story. Back in 1991, the average first-time homebuyer was just 28 years old. At that age, people were starting families, building equity and laying the foundation for generational wealth. Fast forward to today, and that age has jumped to 38. That's an entire decade lost. 10 years where people could have been raising children, investing in their futures, and creating stability. Instead, they're stuck renting, living with roommates, or even moving back in with their parents, unable to break into the housing market. The financial barriers are staggering. In the 1970s, a home typically cost about 3 times the average annual income. If you earned $30,000, you could reasonably afford a $90,000 house. Today, that ratio has ballooned to 6, 8, or even 10 times the annual income in many areas. For example, in cities like San Francisco or New York, the average home price is so astronomical that even a 6-figure salary feels inadequate. And it's not just the big cities. This affordability crisis has spread to suburban and rural areas as well. To make matters worse, nearly half of all metropolitan areas now require a 6-figure income just to afford a median-priced home. Since 2019, the situation has deteriorated rapidly, with home prices skyrocketing while wages have barely budged. The average household income in America can no longer support the purchase of an average home. The math simply doesn't add up, leaving millions of middle-class families locked out of homeownership. This crisis has ripple effect. Without affordable housing, young people are delaying major life milestones like marriage and having children. They're drowning in debt, working multiple jobs, and still falling short. By the time they scrape together enough for a down payment, they're often well into their late 30s or early 40s, missing out on years of financial growth and stability. If we want to restore the American dream, we need to address this housing crisis head-on. Building more homes, regulating corporate ownership of residential properties, and making housing a right, not a privilege, are essential steps toward fixing this broken system. 2. The rising cost of transportation. In America, owning a car isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Unlike Europe, where public transportation is widely accessible, most Americans rely on their vehicles to get to work, run errands, and live their daily lives. But what happens when the cost of owning a car becomes so high that it's out of reach for the middle class? That's the reality we're facing today, and it's trapping millions of families in a cycle of financial strain. Let's start with the basics. The average monthly payment for a new car has soared to around $750. Even used cars, which were once the go-to option for budget-conscious buyers, now come with an average monthly payment of over $600. These numbers are staggering, especially when you consider that many middle-class families are already struggling to make ends meet. And it's not just the car payments. Interest rates on auto loans have skyrocketed, with new car loans averaging over 9% and used car loans climbing to nearly 14%. These rates make it nearly impossible for families to afford reliable transportation without sinking deeper into debt. But the financial burden doesn't stop there. Car insurance costs have jumped by 19% in just 1 year, adding yet another layer of expense. For many families, the combined cost of car payments, insurance, and maintenance is eating up a significant portion of their monthly budget. And let's not forget that cars are depreciating assets. They lose value the moment you drive them off the lot. So families are paying premium prices for something that's worth less every day, just to stay employed and keep their lives running. The impact of these rising costs is profound. Until the mid-2000s, it was common for middle-class households to have 2 vehicles, one for each parent. This was a standard part of life, allowing families to juggle work, school, and extracurricular activities with ease. Today, that's no longer the case. Many families are now sharing a single vehicle, coordinating schedules like a military operation just to make it work. This isn't just inconvenient, it's a sign of how far the middle class has fallen. If we want to address this crisis, we need to rethink our approach to transportation. That means investing in public transit, making electric vehicles more affordable, and finding ways to lower the cost of car ownership. Reliable transportation shouldn't be a luxury, it's a basic necessity for millions of hardworking Americans. 3. The healthcare profit trap. Healthcare in America is a paradox. On one hand, we have some of the most advanced medical technology and treatments in the world. On the other hand, accessing that care has become a financial nightmare for the middle class. The system isn't designed to keep people healthy. It's designed to extract as much profit as possible from those who have no choice but to pay. Consider this. Health insurance premiums have been rising at a rate far outpacing wage growth. In 2010, the average family health insurance plan cost around one-third. That's nearly a $9,000 increase in just over a decade, while wages have barely kept up with inflation. For many families, these rising costs are unsustainable, forcing them to make tough choices between paying for healthcare and covering other essential expenses. And it's not just the premiums. Co-pays, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses have all skyrocketed, leaving families vulnerable to financial ruin in the event of a medical emergency. A single hospital visit or unexpected diagnosis can wipe out years of savings, plunging families into debt. It's no wonder that medical bills are one of the leading causes of bankruptcy in the United States. The situation is even worse for those who lose their employer-sponsored health insurance due to job changes or layoffs. Without that safety net, many Americans are left scrambling to find coverage, often settling for plans with high premiums and limited benefits. Others go without insurance altogether, risking their health and financial stability because they simply can't afford the cost. This profit-driven system has real consequences. People are skipping doctor visits, rationing medications, and delaying necessary treatments because they can't afford the care they need. In the richest country in the world, this is nothing short of a disgrace. If we want to rebuild the middle class, we need to overhaul our healthcare system. That means prioritizing people over profits, expanding access to affordable care, and ensuring that no one has to choose between their health and their financial future. The childcare affordability crisis. Raising children is one of the most rewarding experiences in life, but in America, it's also one of the most expensive. The cost of childcare has reached crisis levels, making it nearly impossible for many middle-class families to afford. This isn't just a personal problem, it's a societal issue that threatens the future of our country. Let's break it down. Parents with 2 young children in daycare are paying upwards of $3,000 per month. That's over $307,000 per year, more than many people earn in a full-time job. Even with sibling discounts, the financial burden is crushing. And these costs aren't static. They're rising every year, putting even more pressure on families who are already stretched thin. The average cost of preschool now exceeds $13,000 per child annually. To put that in perspective, we spend less per student on K-12 public education than parents are paying for preschool. This disparity is mind-boggling, especially when you consider that early childhood education is critical for a child's development. Most developed countries recognize this and offer public preschool programs. In America, however, families are left to shoulder the burden on their own. The high cost of childcare forces many parents to make difficult choices. Some leave the workforce entirely because their salaries barely cover the cost of daycare. Others delay having children or decide not to have them at all, fearing the financial strain. This isn't just a personal sacrifice, it's a demographic crisis. Without enough young people to sustain the population, our economy and social systems will face serious challenges in the years to come. If we want to support families and ensure a bright future for our country, we need to address the childcare crisis. That means investing in affordable, high-quality childcare and early education programs. It's not just the right thing to do, it's an investment in our future. 5. The death of the single-income household. There was a time when a single income was enough to support a family. One parent could work while the other stayed home to raise the kids, and the family could still afford a house, a car, and even a vacation. That era is long gone. Today, the single-income household is a relic of the past, replaced by a system that demands both parents' work, and even that often isn't enough. In the 1970s, about half of women with children under 18 stayed home. Families could thrive on one income, thanks to stable wages and affordable living costs. Today, over 80% of middle-class families rely on dual incomes just to get by, and even with both parents working, many families are still struggling to make ends meet. Wages have stagnated while the cost of living has skyrocketed, leaving families in a constant state of financial stress. Take the example of a nurse working full-time in healthcare. Despite working overtime shifts and picking up side gigs on weekends, they're still falling behind on bills. This isn't an isolated case, it's the reality for millions of middle-class workers. The solution isn't to work even more hours. The problem lies in a system that no longer rewards hard work with financial stability. The death of the single-income household has profound implications for families. Parents are stretched thin, juggling work and family responsibilities with little time for rest or connection. Children are spending more time in daycare or after-school programs, while parents miss out on important milestones. This isn't just a financial issue, it's a quality of life issue that affects the well-being of entire families. To rebuild the middle class, we need to create an economy where one income is enough to support a family. That means raising wages, lowering the cost of living, and ensuring that hard work is rewarded with financial security. Families shouldn't have to sacrifice their time, health, and happiness just to survive. 6. The savings mirage, living on the edge. Saving money has become a distant dream for the middle class, a mirage that seems to fade further away with every passing year. For many hard-working families, the idea of building a financial cushion or setting aside funds for the future feels impossible. Living paycheck to paycheck has become the norm, even for those earning what used to be considered a comfortable income. The harsh reality is that every dollar is spoken for before it even hits their bank account. Take, for example, a couple in their mid-50s who have spent their entire adult lives working in manufacturing and retail. They've raised their children, paid their taxes, and followed all the rules society laid out for them. Yet, despite decades of hard work, they find themselves with little to no savings and minimal retirement fund. They dream of retiring with dignity, but the numbers simply don't add up. They're left wondering if they'll ever be able to stop working before their health gives out. The statistics are sobering. Nearly 3/4 of households earning between $60,000 and $100,000, a range that once defined middle-class stability, are unable to save anything. Just a year ago, that figure was 2/3. This means that even families with decent incomes are finding it increasingly difficult to set aside money for emergencies, let alone long-term goals like retirement or their children's education. Rising costs for essentials like housing, healthcare, and childcare are eating up larger portions of household budgets, leaving nothing left to save. The consequences of this savings crisis are dire. Families are one unexpected expense away from financial disaster. A car repair, a medical bill, or even a minor home repair can send them spiraling into debt. Without savings, there's no safety net, no buffer to absorb life's inevitable challenges. This isn't just a financial issue. It's a source of constant stress and anxiety for millions of Americans. If we want to rebuild the middle class, we need to address the systemic issues that make saving impossible for so many. 7. Retirement. The vanishing reward. Retirement, once seen as the ultimate reward for a lifetime of hard work, has become an unattainable fantasy for much of the middle class. The idea of clocking out for the last time and enjoying your golden years, traveling, spending time with family, and finally relaxing, feels like a relic of a bygone era. For millions of Americans, the dream of retirement has been replaced by the harsh reality of working indefinitely. Consider the story of a middle-aged worker who once dreamed of retiring comfortably. They envisioned a future where they could finally stop worrying about bills and enjoy the fruits of their labor. But as they approach their 50s and 60s, they've come to accept that retirement may never be realistic. Instead of planning for the future, they focus on surviving day to day, finding small moments of joy in the present, because the traditional retirement their parents enjoyed is out of reach. The challenges are systemic. Social Security, once a cornerstone of retirement planning, faces significant financial challenges in the coming years. Pensions, which provided a reliable source of income for previous generations, have all but disappeared. Meanwhile, the cost of living continues to rise, and wages have stagnated, leaving little room for retirement savings. Many middle-class workers are forced to rely on 401k plans, which are subject to market fluctuations and often insufficient to cover the costs of retirement. The statistics are grim. Most middle-class Americans believe they are worse off financially this year than they were last year. The retirement age continues to rise, even as life expectancy for working-class Americans declines in some areas. This means people are working longer and living less, a cruel irony that underscores the brokenness of the system. If we want to restore the promise of retirement, we need to address these systemic issues and ensure that hard work is rewarded with financial security in old age. 8. The debt trap. Credit cards as lifelines. For many middle-class families, credit cards have become less of a convenience and more of a lifeline. When cash runs out, and necessities like food, utilities, and medical bills still need to be paid, credit becomes the only option. But relying on credit for survival comes at a steep cost, trapping families in a cycle of debt that's nearly impossible to escape. Imagine a family with tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt spread across multiple accounts. Their monthly payments exceed $2,000, and they're barely keeping up with the interest, let alone making a dent in the principal. This isn't the result of extravagant spending on luxury items or vacation. It's the cost of survival, paying for groceries, car repairs, and medical expenses when there's no other way to make ends meet. The numbers are staggering. About half of middle-income earners rely on credit cards to cover basic needs. These aren't luxuries, they're the essentials required to live and work. And the situation is only getting worse. Many families expect to take on even more debt in the coming months, knowing full well that they're digging themselves deeper into a hole they may never climb out of. This debt spiral is by design. High interest rates and fees ensure that families remain trapped, paying more to banks and credit card companies than they can afford. The result is a vicious cycle. You work to pay off debt, but because you can't save, the next emergency goes on credit, creating even more debt. It's a system that keeps the middle class struggling, unable to get ahead. Breaking this cycle requires systemic change, including better financial protections for consumers and policies that address the root causes of middle-class debt. 9. The urban exodus. Cities for the wealthy. America's cities, once vibrant hubs of middle-class life, are becoming increasingly unaffordable for the very people who keep them running. From teachers and nurses to service workers and small business owners, middle-class families are being priced out of urban areas, forced to move further and further away from their jobs. The result is a growing divide between the wealthy, who can afford to live in the city, and everyone else, who must endure long commutes and declining quality of life. Take St. Petersburg, Florida, as an example. This isn't Manhattan or San Francisco, it's a mid-sized city in the Sunshine State. Yet, new apartment complexes are charging over $3,000 a month for a one-bedroom unit. A two-bedroom apartment, close to $5,000 or more. Even if you split the cost with a roommate, you're still paying over $2,000 a month just to share a space. And that's before you factor in the upfront costs of signing a lease, which often include first and last month's rent, a security deposit, and various fees. Who has that kind of cash lying around? The gentrification of middle-class neighborhoods has only made things worse. Families who have lived in these areas for generations are being pushed out as property values and rents skyrocket. They're forced to move to the suburbs or even rural areas, spending hours each day commuting to jobs in the city. This isn't just inconvenient, it's a significant hit to their quality of life. Meanwhile, the wealthy enjoy the benefits of urban living, from short commutes to cultural amenities, while the middle class is left behind. If we want to make cities livable for everyone, we need to address the urban rent crisis. That means building more affordable housing, regulating rent increases, and ensuring that middle-class families aren't pushed out of the communities they've helped build. 10. The lost tradition of family vacations. Family vacations were once a cherished tradition for the middle class, a time to escape the daily grind, explore new places, and create lasting memories. Whether it was a road trip to a national park or a week at the beach, these trips were a staple of middle-class life. But for millions of Americans, the idea of taking a family vacation has become a distant dream, something they may never experience in their lifetime. Consider the stories of people who have never been on a real vacation, not as children, not as teenagers, and not as adults. Their families couldn't afford it, and now as adults, they find themselves in the same position. They watch as others post photos of their travels on social media, visiting exotic destinations or even just taking a weekend getaway. For them, the world beyond their hometown feels out of reach. A luxury reserved for the wealthy. The financial barriers are significant. The cost of travel, accommodations, and activities adds up quickly, making even modest vacations unaffordable for many families. Rising costs for essentials like housing, healthcare, and childcare leave little room in the budget for discretionary spending. As a result, millions of Americans will spend their entire lives within a small radius of their homes, never experiencing the broader world. This isn't just about missing out on leisure, it's about missing out on life. Travel broadens horizons, exposes people to new cultures, and creates memories that last a lifetime. For the middle class, the inability to afford vacations is yet another sign of how far they've fallen. Restoring this tradition will require systemic changes that make travel accessible and affordable for all families, not just the wealthy few. 11. The Disney Dream. A luxury for the few. Once upon a time, a trip to Disney was a quintessential middle-class family experience. It was a rite of passage for kids, a magical getaway that parents could afford to give their children every few years. But today, the dream of taking your family to Disney has transformed into a financial nightmare, accessible only to those with deep pockets. What was once a special but attainable treat has become a luxury vacation with a price tag that rivals international travel. Let's break it down. A family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids, planning a single day at Disneyland faces staggering costs. Adult tickets alone are priced at around $199 each, while children's tickets hover near $199. That's nearly $700 just to walk through the gates. Add in food and drinks, which can easily run between $240 and $360 for the day, and parking fees of $35, and let's not forget souvenirs. Because what parent can say no to their child's plea for a Mickey Mouse plush or a pair of iconic ears? That's another $200. If the family decides to stay overnight, hotel costs range from $100. Altogether, a single day at Disney can cost anywhere from $176. Today, the cost of admission alone has skyrocketed, making it feel more like an exclusive resort than a family-friendly destination. For many, the idea of taking their kids to Disney has become a pipe dream, a once-attainable experience now reserved for the wealthy. The magic of Disney may still exist, but for millions of middle-class families, it's a magic they can no longer afford to touch. 12. Live music. A stage for the wealthy. There was a time when live music was for everyone. Concerts were a way for fans to connect with their favorite artist, to sing along in a crowd of like-minded people, and to create memories that would last a lifetime. But in recent years, the cost of attending a concert has skyrocketed, turning live music into an experience reserved for the wealthy. The fans who helped make these artists famous are now being priced out of the very shows they once cherished. Take major tours like Beyoncé's Renaissance Tour or Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Tickets for these events often start in the hundreds and can climb into the thousands. Dynamic pricing, ticket scalping, and corporate greed have all contributed to this surge in costs. Fans who have supported these artists for years, buying albums, streaming songs, and sharing their music are now finding themselves locked out of live performances. The idea of spending vacation-level money for a few hours of entertainment is simply out of reach for most middle-class families. The numbers are telling. In 1990, the average concert ticket cost between $11 and $50 when adjusted for inflation. Today, that average has soared to over $200, far outpacing regular inflation. The rise of dynamic pricing and the use of bots to buy up tickets have only made things worse, creating a system where regular fans are left scrambling for scraps while resellers and corporations profit. Live music was once a unifying experience, a way for people from all walks of life to come together and celebrate their favorite artists. Now it's an exclusive event for those who can afford it. If we want to bring live music back to the people, we need to address the systemic issues that have turned concerts into a luxury rather than a shared cultural experience. 13 sports events. Empty seats, full pockets. Sports have always been a cornerstone of American culture. From Friday night football games to Sunday afternoons at the ballpark, sports were a way for families and communities to come together, but today the cost of attending a live sporting event has become so high that stadiums are often filled with empty seats, even as ticket prices continue to climb. What was once a family-friendly activity has become a luxury experience, accessible only to those who can afford to pay the price. Consider the cost of attending a major sporting event. Tickets for playoff games, tennis tournaments, or even regular season matchups can easily exceed $700 or $800 each. For a family of four, that's thousands of dollars just to watch a game in person. Over the past few decades, ticket prices have more than doubled when adjusted for inflation. A ticket that cost $100 a few decades ago now costs over $200, far outpacing the rate of wage growth. The result is a growing divide between the wealthy, who can afford to attend games, and everyone else who is left watching from home, if they can afford cable, that is. Stadiums, once filled with cheering fans, now sit half-empty as event organizers prioritize corporate sponsors and high-paying customers over regular families. The sense of community that once defined live sports is fading, replaced by a system that values profit over people. If we want to make sports accessible again, we need to rethink how tickets are priced and distributed. Families shouldn't have to choose between paying their bills and taking their kids to a game. Sports should be for everyone, not just the wealthy few. 14. The cable and internet squeeze. In today's world, access to cable TV and the internet is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. From streaming entertainment to working remotely, these services are essential for modern life. But for many middle-class families, the cost of staying connected has become a significant financial burden. Monthly bills for cable and internet now rival the cost of utilities, leaving families struggling to keep up. The average cable package costs over $200 per month, adding up to more than $2,600 annually, and that's just for TV. When you factor in internet and phone services, the total can easily exceed $300 per month. Customers often try to negotiate lower rates, only to be met with inflexible pricing and a lack of promotions. The result is a system where families are stuck paying exorbitant fees for services they can't live without. Streaming was supposed to be the affordable alternative to cable, but it hasn't lived up to its promise, with platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. The costs of subscribing to multiple services add up quickly. What was once a way to save money has become just as expensive as traditional cable, if not more. In the 1980s, basic TV channels were free with an antenna. Today, even the most basic cable packages come with a hefty price tag. The rising cost of staying connected is yet another example of how the middle class is being squeezed. If we want to make these essential services accessible, we need to address the monopolistic practices and lack of competition that drive up prices. 15. Higher education. The debt machine. For decades, college was seen as the ticket to the middle class, a way to secure a stable job, buy a home, and build a better future. But today, higher education has become a financial trap, leaving millions of Americans buried under a mountain of debt. The cost of attending college has skyrocketed, turning what was once an investment in the future into a lifelong financial burden. Student loan debt in the United States has surpassed $1.5 trillion, with the average borrower owing tens of thousands of dollars. Monthly payments often exceed hundreds of dollars, stretching well into adulthood. For many, this debt makes it impossible to achieve traditional markers of middle-class success, like buying a home, starting a family, or saving for retirement. The cost of tuition has risen dramatically over the past few decades. In 1980, a year of tuition at a public university cost just a few $1,000s when adjusted for inflation. Today, that figure has ballooned to over $10,000 per year, and that's just for tuition. When you add in room and board, books, and fees, the total cost of attending a public university can easily reach $25,000 to $30,000 per year. For private colleges, the numbers are even higher. Graduates are entering the workforce with massive debt loads, often before they've had a chance to establish their careers. This debt not only limits their financial freedom, but also has a ripple effect on the economy, as young people delay major life milestones. If we want to make higher education a pathway to opportunity rather than a financial trap, we need to address the root causes of rising tuition and provide more support for students. Education should be a bridge to the middle class, not a barrier. 16. Emergency savings. A crisis waiting to happen. Financial experts have long advised that every household should have 3 to 6 months' worth of expenses saved for emergency. This safety net is meant to protect families from unexpected crises like job loss, medical emergencies, or major repairs. But for the majority of middle-class Americans, this advice feels more like a cruel joke than a practical goal. The reality is that most people can't even cover a $500 emergency expense without resorting to credit cards or loans. Imagine your car breaks down unexpectedly. You need it to get to work, but the repair bill is $1,200. Without savings, you're forced to put it on a credit card, adding to an already growing pile of debt. Or consider a sudden medical emergency, an accident, an illness, or even a routine procedure that insurance doesn't fully cover. Once again, the cost goes on credit. Even something as mundane as a roof leak or a broken water heater can send a family spiraling into financial chaos. The middle class used to have a buffer, a financial cushion that allowed them to weather life's inevitable storms. But today, that margin for error has disappeared. Rising costs for housing, healthcare, and everyday necessities have left families with little to no room in their budgets for savings. One unexpected expense can topple the entire house of cards, plunging families into a cycle of debt and financial instability. The lack of emergency savings isn't just a personal problem, it's a systemic issue that leaves millions of Americans vulnerable to disaster. 17. Dental care. The price of a healthy smile. In America, dental care has become a luxury rather than a basic necessity. While health insurance is often inadequate, dental insurance is even worse, with annual caps that make it nearly useless for anything beyond routine cleanings. For many middle-class families, the cost of maintaining healthy teeth is simply out of reach, forcing them to live with pain, infections, and untreated dental issues. Let's talk numbers. A root canal, one of the most common dental procedures, costs between $1,200 and $1,500. Add a crown to that, and you're looking at an additional $1,000 to $1,500. If you need both, the total cost can easily exceed $3,000. Most dental insurance plans have annual coverage limits of $1,000, which means you're left paying the majority of the bill out of pocket. And that's assuming you even have dental insurance, which